Hello and welcome to the Lead Out Loud podcast, Real Leadership Edition. I am Professor G, and I am joined again today by Mariam, not a lover of strippers, Laes.
We're still working on the nickname.
Okay. All right. Today we are continuing with... We're continuing.
We're continuing the Real Leadership Edition of our Lead Out Loud, of your Lead Out Loud podcast.
Yes, but also, we're continuing Real Leadership. We've done a couple episodes now, though, that are a little bit different, and this one is also a little bit different from being different. It's not the same. So we've done a couple now where instead of doing a film, we have been doing
TV shows.
I'm laughing because what I just said about now cue my family to make noise, you can hear it, right?
It's all good.
Yeah.
We are real people with real lives. Yeah, we're real people with real lives. So
I'm in the economy version of the production studio. So, okay, we've been doing some TV episodes, and today we're doing multiple TV episodes. So that's why, all right, we're not doing a film. We're talking about The Office. But instead of just doing a single episode the way we did before, we're actually looking at 3 episodes that kind of have this little story arc. They are non-consecutive episodes. So this is going to be from season 6, and we'll do a quick recap here in a second. But season 6, episodes 3, 10, and 11. And I forget, how many seasons did they do? Was it 10? So is this halfway through their run?
I think it was. Yeah. Well, because Michael's still there. Yeah, and then he ends up leaving. And they do another 2 or 3 seasons. So I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to answer my own question right now. It looks like they did 9 seasons. So 9 seasons. So yeah, this is more than halfway through the run of The Office. And I'll give a quick. So this was Mariam's pick. In part, I think I've actually been saying we're going to do The Office for a while, but look, I didn't see The Office from the very beginning. I kind of picked it up when it was in production, but midway through, and then I have since rewatched it, but not as many times as Mare, which will, I think, become very apparent here. So I'm going to let you, Mariam, in just a moment here kind of give the quick summary of each of the episodes. But I will start off by saying we picked these because of the strong leadership presence. So what's happening is Jim and Michael are now co-managers. And so one of the episodes deals with that, and then that persists through the remainder of the season. And then we have an episode where the company is looking like they're going to go bankrupt, and so there's some angst surrounding that. And then the last episode is Michael going to the board of directors meeting, which we will definitely get into. So I'm going to stop there, and Mariam, let you kind of introduce or reintroduce to people the show. Make sure you give a little background so that if those that haven't seen the show have a little bit of information. But walk us through each of the episodes. Let's do that first, and then we'll start going through each one point by point.
Okay, perfect. So The Office, if you live under a rock, this is what it's about. Literally, it's a mockumentary. So it's like a faux documentary. They do what I'm going to refer to during this episode as talking heads, where you'll see an individual character being interviewed by the camera as if you're watching a documentary about a paper company. Dunder Mifflin's a paper company, and this is one of the branches of Dunder Mifflin. It's the Scranton branch. And we basically follow these characters in an ordinary office. They're ordinary people, and you just follow along their lives. And their boss, their manager, is Michael Scott. So that's what the show is about. It is a comedy.
Played by Steve Carell.
Yes, Michael Scott played by Steve Carell. And then we can get into some of the other characters too. Do you want me to start with the first episode that we did, episode 3, and give a quick kind of overview of it?
Yeah.
Okay, so in episode 3, we are introduced to kind of this what I'm going to call like a mini series, which is what Sean and I are going to talk about today within The Office. So Jim Halpert, who is played by John Krasinski, has worked at The Office from the beginning until, through season 6. And he's kind of seen as like the straight man of The Office. Like, he's very competent and he's hardworking, but also lazy in a way. Like, he kind of just does what he needs to do to make his numbers, but he doesn't. And then he complains about wanting to be a leader, but then doesn't step up when he needs to sometimes. So anyway, he has a healthy relationship with I think he's a CFO, David Wallace, and he's been able to convince David Wallace to allow him to become a co-manager of The Office. So now he and Michael Scott, so Jim and Michael Scott, are now co-managers of the Scranton branch. And this is the first episode where we see them trying to work together to co-manage The Office and the dynamics at play when you have two people in charge.
So you mentioned Jim kind of being a little bit lazy and wanting to. So he has notes. He's got. It was not in this episode. I believe it's in a previous season, but he has one of the greatest lines that is just so quotable, and I've used it. As soon as I tell you, you're going to be like, "Yes, I've heard you say that." I used it a lot when I worked in large Fortune 50 companies. But it kind of sums up what you just said about Jim. It's really insightful. So it's a talking head, and he's looking at the camera, and he says, if you really want to impress your boss, you go in there and you do mediocre work half-heartedly.
Yes. Which, if you want to climb the ladder, that is the way to do it, folks. Don't be like Sean and I. Don't disrupt the status quo. If you want to be popular, do your job half-heartedly.
and I have a variant of that where I say I am highly confident that we will make the wrong decision and execute it half-heartedly, because I've seen that happen a lot as well. I think so. Yes, that is that's the synopsis for episode 3. Let's go ahead and do the synopsis of each episode. So now we're going to fast forward in the show 7 episodes out to episode 10. That's the next one. Let's give the quick overview on that one.
In episode 10, in episode 10, the workers in the office, there's a rumor going around that Dunder Mifflin is basically about to go bankrupt, and they might go out of business. So they read it in I think it was a Wall Street Journal. And so there's all this speculation, but they haven't really heard formally. And so the workers are, kind of panicking, like, oh God, okay, we're going to shut down. What are we going to do? And now we're going to see how Jim decides to handle that type of, that level of emotion, and then how Michael decides to handle it. So I can give more detail, or you can kind of wait to get into it. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. We're going to see that dynamic.
Let's get on that one. Then season 10, episode 10, obviously, is right before episode 11. So these two do kind of go a little bit more hand in hand as the episodes were airing. Let's do episode 11.
So then episode 11, there's a big shareholder meeting. So the corporate office, Dunder Mifflin is having, they're a public company, and they're having a shareholder meeting. So it's in New York, and they actually send Michael out to the shareholders meeting to be a representative of their most successful branch. So Michael, they want to show the shareholders, like, even though there's been all this speculation about us not doing well and maybe the share price is dropping, they want to bring Michael along as like the face up, like, no, everything's okay, and he's going to be great. So you have Michael with all the board of Dunder Mifflin, and so we get to kind of we get a lot of laughs out of that one as well. And then you see Jim still at the Scranton branch, managing on his own without Michael's interference, and you get some more insight in the relationship that Jim has with his coworkers and how they may view his position of authority.
Much to his disappointment. That was great. Okay. I think what I want to do here, unless you have a different approach, I found myself on this one. A lot of times I'm organizing it by character, but on this one, I was just jotting things down chronologically as things occurred. And so I figure we can just, especially now that we've kind of given the broad strokes with the overview, everybody's got an idea of where we're headed, we could just kind of do that.
Yeah, I do. I have notes by character, but within the character chronologically, like by episode. So I will follow along. I'll let you take the lead.
So season 6, episode 3, which is funny because when I wrote it down, I wrote it a little bit messy on my paper, and so I paused or something, walked away, and I looked back at my paper, and I'm like, why did I write SGE 3? SGE, of course, is my company, Sean Genovese. I'm like, what? SGE? What was I? Oh, no, that's a 6. So season 6, episode 3, the episode is titled The Promotion. This happened to me. This happened to me when I worked for Boeing. Actually, this was my last experience before I left. One of the reasons why I left, to be honest, I had 2 managers. Like, legit, they thought, the powers that be, for reasons that we could dive into and maybe discuss if you want, but senior management thought that it would be a good idea, instead of just picking one person to replace an outgoing manager, they picked 2 women, which there's an interesting choice there as well. And it worked about as poorly as you would expect. And what was really interesting is, when we first find out, we have a staff meeting, and they go, okay, Tara and Susie are going to be the co-managers. We're both going to be managers. We're not going to split the team, right? Everybody's going to work for everybody. But if just know that if you come to us with anything, we both know everything, which of course was not the case. And that was demonstrated to me on multiple occasions, and ultimately became, as I said, one of the inciting factors for me to choosing to move on. So that's what's happening here, is they have put Michael and Jim both in charge.
But so in your situation though, Sean, were the 2 managers, did they come in at the same time, or was it the same as The Office where Michael has always been the manager? So the change here is now that we have a second manager who was actually once an employee of Michael. So was your situation like that, or did they bring on 2 new managers?
As I recall, and it's been a minute now, it was 2 new managers.
Okay, so it's slightly different, but yeah.
It is slightly different, and I think what happened, there was a little bit more nuance to it, because we had a north and a south. So we were one team. We had 2 managers under 1 senior manager, okay? And we were separated geographically. And then I can't remember what happened to first manager. I think he got promoted. And then the other manager in the South retired. And so they consolidated the South and the North now into 1 team.
Okay.
For some reason, kept 2 managers. And I'm sure there was more to it that I'm forgetting now. I just remember thinking, this is stupid. And look, it's hard to be humble when you're right all the time. It turned out to be stupid. And you are right as well that, that is slightly different. In fact, one could argue that should have been in some ways better than what's happening here, where you have this established manager and then now you're just adding. Because that. Let's get into it, right? That's part of the conflict here, is everybody's going, well, why should we listen to you? Michael's been our manager. But we all know Michael's the real manager, and that comes up again in episode 11. Mm-hmm. And the first problem, of course, and I experienced this as well, okay? The first problem we see as the episode's opening is, well, who's responsible for what? Dwight comes in, and we'll talk more about Dwight here later, but, Dwight comes in. He's one of the salesmen. He needs an expense report signed off. He comes into Jim. Hey, I need this expense report. And, he goes to Michael first. He goes to Michael
He
first.
goes to Michael. Dwight is played by Rainn Wilson. He's seen as like, I'm not saying this like, loosely, but he's kind of autistic and he's very nerdy and very rigid and rule following. And he has always been like Jim and Dwight have always gone to head. And historically throughout the series, Jim is constantly pranking Dwight, and Dwight is constantly trying to get Jim fired just because he dislikes him. So now that Jim is the manager, Dwight is avoiding Jim and still behaving as if Michael is the only manager.
Yeah.
And so he goes directly to Michael instead of going to Jim. Sorry, continue.
No, thank you. And of course, Michael's cuts him off mid-sentence. Nope. No. That sounds like a day-to-day thing. I am the big picture manager. I only handle big picture items.
Right.
And so at first glance, right, I was kind of like, oh, okay, good. Clear roles and responsibilities. He's delegating the task. But of course, it's not really what's happening. Because now Dwight he's forced to go to see Jim. And I forget now the reason that Jim won't. Oh, he comes in. He says, "I need you to sign this." And Jim says, "Can I get a please?"
Right. So okay, I have to. This already. This was not even 3 seconds in. Miriam's taking notes. Jim, I love Jim. I love John Krasinski's character. I think Jim is so funny. And when I was younger, I was Team Jim, and now viewing it as an adult, I'm like, Jim, you butthole. He is still playing pranks on Dwight. And he's still behaving immaturely, even though he got the title he wanted. So I really was frustrated. Like now rewatching it, in this leadership lens, I was very frustrated with Jim because it's like, okay, this was tee hee ha ha when you were equals. But now you are a manager.
Inappropriate.
And you're still playing pranks on Dwight. And poor Dwight, he never does anything wrong. He's always by the, rule book. So it's like, he's just trying to get this signed. And Jim is like, well, can you say please? It's like, Jim, come on. That's not nice.
But at the same time, so all Dwight has to do is say please. He won't do it.
Right. But Jim, part of knowing how to manage people is understanding your audience. And so Jim he knew that Dwight wasn't going to do it. So.
So, all right. So right away, you've got that. And then it cuts to a talking head of Oscar. So Oscar is one of the accountants.
This is one of my favorite quotes. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah. Do you want to do it?
No, I didn't write it down. You do it.
Well, I mean, I don't have the whole quote, but essentially Oscar's very straight-faced, right? He's delivering this totally straight, which is ironic because Oscar plays a gay man, but he's delivering the line totally stoic. Yeah, no, it's great having two managers because think of all the countries that have two presidents, and what would the Catholic Church be without two popes? And he just goes on like 3 or 4 deep, and what would this be with that? What would a company? All the best companies have two CEOs,
right?
So obviously it's not going well, and Oscar has recognized that.
Yes, it's really good. I want to say I told you this, Sean, but so the listeners know. Peacock released a version of The Office for super fans like me who have already seen the original over 10 times, embarrassingly. They released superfan episodes, which is like an extended cut of the episodes that aired. And that was what I watched. So there are things that like I'm going to bring up later and I'll give you the context behind it that were in the superfan episodes. So if you watch those, there actually were some more nuggets that help inform my opinions.
Interesting.
But I just wanted to give that tidbit. So if you enjoyed The Office, go watch the superfan episodes. They're really good.
And I did not watch the superfan version because I was flying by the seat of my pants today and finished watching the 3rd episode about 7 minutes before we jumped on to record. So I did not have time for any extra minutes.
Okay.
So there's a line here, Jim and Michael go into the office and they're talking, and I wrote down Michael talks and says nothing, so I'm going to come back to that. He says they're disagreeing on how to move forward on whatever they were talking about. Now I can't even remember. And Michael says, what I want is more important than what you want.
Well, is this about how they're going to delegate the pay raise? Is that what you're talking about?
Is
Or
that
the meetings, the constant meetings?
It's the meetings. No, yeah, they're still talking about
Yes.
the meetings. So Michael's
Okay.
having meetings every day, conference room meetings every day, and Jim's like, "Hey, look, this is getting a little bit much. It's kind of wasting some time." And they're going back and forth, trying to decide. Well, all right, when should we meet? What's the threshold? And it devolves into what I want is more important than what you want.
Yes.
Which is kind of how, like, under the surface, that's how everything continues to be, or at least that's the attitude of both Michael and kind of the people in the office.
Right.
Even with Jim as an official manager, which is one of the problems here. But also, even if there's only one manager, that's a little bit of a problem. If the manager goes, well, what I want is more important than what all of you want. We've talked about this before in the context of other shows. If you don't have that alignment, like, hopefully what I want is aligned with the organization's goals and objectives, and therefore what I want it should be what you want, because you should also be aligned. But here it doesn't matter. He just wants everybody aligned to what he wants, which is not a good leadership trait.
No, and this is one of the super fan talking heads that you didn't see. So there's a talking head with Jim where he's in reference to this. He talks about, in the past I've kind of let Michael get his way, and I've given in, but not today. Today I'm going to put my foot down. And then he kind of goes, well, I know I said it yesterday, but today for real, I'm not going to let him get away with this, constant conference room, wasting of time of the conference rooms. But then he doesn't influence Michael in any way. Jim, you have the same title, you are now equals, and yet he's unable to actually influence any change in behavior from Michael. And Michael, as with all his incompetence, he still is able to creatively get around Jim's constraints by having the smaller meeting in his office, which I think you were just about to get to, right?
Yeah, so I was actually going to skip over that, but we can't spend an hour on the one episode if we got 3 to do.
Right.
But yeah, so Michael. Okay,
he just gets
fine.
around it and does what he wants.
Yeah, fine. If it's, I won't have any more conference room meetings unless it fits these criteria. And then he brings everybody in. It's not it's a focus group.
Right. Right. And so now there's tension because Jim is mad that Michael's not listening to him, and this all precedes a call from David Wallace.
Yes.
And David Wallace calls them and says, okay, hey, this year's we're not going to be able to really do a cost of living raise for everyone. Budget's tight. So you guys are going to have to determine who gets the raise. And Michael and Jim on the call with their manager but this is they're battling out. How big of a decision is this? Who gets the authority?
This is big picture, right?
Yeah, this is big picture. And Jim says, yeah, but it affects the day-to-day of the people in the office, so I should get to make the decision. And their boss is like, I don't care how you do it, just do it. And he gets off the call. So now they have to figure out a way to work together.
The irony of that is, so they are posturing for who gets to make the decision, but then 5 minutes later, when they really start thinking about the task, neither one of them wants to make the decision. They realize this sucks. So there's also a line just before that where, again, they're kind of going back and forth on, well, David Wallace said we are both equal managers. And Michael says, well, that's not what he said. And Jim says, no, this is exactly what he says. And then Michael says, well, that's not what I heard. I mean, first of all, okay.
Awareness.
Good on you for, right? Yeah.
A moment of high EQ from Michael Scott.
Right? But how often does that happen?
Right.
Very, very common.
I liked when Jim attempted to. He told Michael, "Oh, well, you do things. There's some things you do really well. Like you take criticism really well." And Michael goes, you don't know me at all. I hate criticism."
Yeah, that is not what I'm known for.
And Michael and Jim, I'm bringing this up because I'm gonna have a criticism of Jim. So Jim makes this declarative statement that he thinks he thinks Michael is not good at making tough decisions and stating them clearly. So this is Jim's criticism of Michael's leadership.
Yes.
Then Michael says, all right, you think you can do that so well? Go ahead. Go tell everybody outside. Make the decision and go tell everybody what your decision is. And as soon as Jim goes out to the bullpen and he makes the decision, he decides to allocate the raise to the salesman because for whatever his reason is. As soon as he senses that that's not a popular decision, he backtracks. Like, this was terrible leadership. This was horrible. He does the very thing that he criticizes Michael of doing, right? And he backtracks. He doesn't stand his ground. He is not able to influence anybody in any way. He's not able to clearly state what his decision was and stick by it. And to be a good leader, you often have to do things that are very unpopular.
He also, okay, so he comes out and he says, we've decided to give the raises to the sales team, which is an asinine idea, but let's set that aside. Okay. Yeah, I don't even want to get into that. But he comes in, he's look, you guys are all smart. I'm going to level with you. This is what we've decided to do. Then they start pestering, they're just pelting him with, oh, thanks so much for letting us know that you think we're smart. Mm-hmm. And then they're just hitting him with one after another of these twisted versions of what he just said. And I think because of his lack of experience in that role, he doesn't know enough to stop each one and go, okay, wait, nope, that's not exactly right. It was this, right? All he's got to do, he could just correct each one fact for fact and just realign it. And that's going to knock it down right there. But he's allowing them to twist his words as they're throwing them back at him. And then he loses control.
He loses control. They're all piling on. And they're being very sarcastic, which is typically Jim's role. Yeah. I think so. I have not been a manager where I had to determine people's, raises. But Sean, I think it would be really interesting to hear from you. You had at Lockheed, you had a really large team and the budget's only so much. And I'm sure there were times where you were giving, you were telling people what their raise was going to be for the following year. And they probably said, well, hold on. I got a great performance review. Why am I not getting more? I heard Mariam was getting 5%. Why am I getting 3%, right? That's a very uncomfortable position to be in, but what strategies or lessons do you have for leaders? If someone is newly in that position, how should they handle that conversation?
So one thing that they don't dive into, that we don't see in this portrayal of what's happening, is the reality, the truth of it. It's exposed, but it's not explicitly stated. And here's the truth of the matter. In many organizations, and obviously Dunder Mifflin turns out is going to be one of them, Lockheed was certainly one, your financial increase, so your raise, is not directly tied to your performance. Or at least the way the accounting is done, they're not designed to be connected. Unfortunately, the way everybody behaves and the mentality the beliefs that everyone has, are now disconnected from that. And I'll give you an example. Okay, so at Lockheed, I have to. Everybody has to do their same at Boeing. Everybody has business goals and objectives. And at the end of the year, I'm going to evaluate how well did you do 1 through 5. 5 is good, 1 is bad. And so somebody could have gotten all 5s. Great, good job. But now, in a separate exercise, we've got this small bucket of money, and we have to decide, well, where does the money go? It does not automatically go to the person who got a 5 for various reasons. One being, well, wait a minute, where is Mariam in the pay scale? Oh, she's in the bottom quartile. Okay, well, we got to bring her up because we can't have somebody that low because that causes a problem with the statistics. All right, well, Mariam got a 3 out of 5. Meanwhile, Alyssa over here got a 5 out of 5, but she gets 5 out of 5s ever since she's worked here. She's already topped out at the max. So you're now disconnecting the idea of performance-based pay because of the reality of how the accounting is done, rightly or wrongly. My bigger issue was at Lockheed, after I evaluated how everybody did, leaders 1 and 2 levels above me came in and re-racked everybody. So like, here's how I rated my people, and Mariam might be at the top of my list. And because of the numerical value that she got, when they put all 50 people in the entire organization together, Mariam's up in the top 5. And then somebody else comes in and goes, well, we can't do that because then that bumps this person out and they need to be above. And it's like, well, wait, based on what? And it became a political game. Who had the most political capital? And that I hated. So I understand what Michael's talking about, because there's a moment here where they sit down, Michael and Jim are in the office, and Michael brings him a world's best boss mug, and he says, man, I'm glad you're here, because usually it's just me doing this by myself, and I hate it. I hate it every year. I love Jim's chart for Michael.
Oh my God. I hated it.
I love it.
He's wasting time.
So, are we talking about the same chart, the pie chart?
The pie chart where he made it bigger so you could see it? Critical thinking? Yeah.
He's, well, after some of this back and forth, you go to the talking head, and Jim's got this pie chart. He says, look, I've been observing Michael for years now, and this is how he spends his time. And it's this pie chart. And there's a big old section labeled procrastinating. It's like 2/3 of the chart. And then there's another third labeled distracting other people. And then there's this little sliver that says critical thinking. I loved it. I thought it was great because that is what we see Michael do. But it also does acknowledge that he has the ability and capacity for critical thinking. And we see it about as much as is indicated on that pie chart. Yeah.
Well, and I think the procrastination is him procrastinating doing an unpopular thing. So he's fine, when he gets to do the fun leadership things, he's quick to do it and announce it and, the hoopla of it all. But when he has to make a tough decision, he procrastinates it all day long. I mean, he procrastinates till the last hour. So yeah, a lot of being a boss is having to do things that are not fun or popular or are going to make people happy. And so Michael's way of getting around that is just procrastinate until the last hour, until basically you're forced. Life either makes a decision for you or he's forced to just declare a decision.
And that's you just said it. So they say that they are trying to find the fairest way possible to do this, but the reality is that they end up trying to find a way to make everybody happy. They're so afraid to rip that Band-Aid off, because even after Jim says, look, I'm going to level with everybody, here it is, and everybody's kind of like all upset, and then Michael comes in and he goes, okay, we were just kidding, good try, Jim, right? What we're actually going to do is something different, and he doesn't say anything, right? He just keeps giving them these platitudes. He's procrastinating, and they're calling him out on it. Well, you haven't really told us anything, and one of the comments is, well, at least Jim was being direct. So like they just wanted a decision. Yeah, is it going to make us happy? Is everybody going to be satisfied? No. And it's like the employees recognized that, but Jim and Michael couldn't reconcile that. They could not bear to not have everybody happy, especially if, in Michael's case, it means they're not going to be happy with him. Mm-hmm. He needs that. I got one more thing, and then I think we need to go to the next episode. Yeah. So Michael comes into the office. Every time they open the door, everybody's yelling at him. So they're in the office, and Michael says, hey, how you doing? And so they both give a score between 1 and 10. He's like, oh, you mean like between 1 and 10? Jim says, well, I'm at about a 4. And Michael says, well, where are you normally? He's like, about a 6. And I love this because this is these two people, okay?
Right, yes. Perfectly
What about
captured.
you? Jim says, what about you?
Usually a 10.
He goes, I'm at a 0. I'm usually at a 10, but today I feel like a 0. Okay, that's Michael, right?
Yeah.
He is hot and cold. He goes from one extreme to the other. And so here he is. Yeah, he's usually at a 10, and now he's all the way down at 0. And Jim is always, he's not as volatile. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm usually at about a 6. Oh, gee, you never get above a 6, but his low is a 4. So he's got this little narrow range.
Because he cares so little. I really think that's why he just cares so little about work.
And I loved that because people need to realize that. Like, that's kind of how it is. You've got people that, yeah, all right, this person might be really up, but their up and Mariam's up are not. You got to calibrate. Like,
yeah.
Mariam might go from 1 to 9. Like that. And then Sean, he might go from, 3 to 5 or 3 to 7. And that's part of, I think we've talked about before, managing up or managing that relationship. You got to understand how that is with both your peers and your managers.
Yes. One last character I just want to touch on. So again, Dwight. I think Dwight was a great example of, This was great because it showed Dwight's ability to influence people, even though he had no formal authority. He was able to get everybody in the office to turn on Jim, right? Like, he was very manipulative, and they were and Dwight is one of those people who, like, and this is what happens. He takes things way too far. Like, sometimes you're like, yeah, Dwight is right, but then he takes it so far. So what happened in this episode?
We're going to see that in episode 11
as well. Yeah. So he has no social awareness. So he ends up losing, he gets the crowd on board, and then he takes something to the extreme and completely loses the crowd. But it was interesting in this episode, Jim, who's usually the popular one, and Dwight, the unpopular one in the office, their roles were kind of flipped because now Jim had to make the hard decision. Nobody liked it. Dwight was able to get everybody on board, even though he had no formal authority. He was able to get them on board with his plan of, like, not liking Jim. But, in the end, Dwight loses the crowd. Again, takes it too far, and they're like, ugh, Dwight, no. But I thought that was, Dwight is not a terrible leader. He does have some leadership traits.
Yeah. See, now you just took it too far. I was going to say, I'm glad you brought that up, because there's a bigger, I think, truth, a bigger glimpse here to another truth, which is Dwight is able to subvert Jim and Michael and get the crowd on his side, in large part because the crowd is susceptible to it, because Jim and Michael did not do a good job of commanding themselves, right? They're wishy-washy. Jim tries to be strong, but then he backpedals, and now he's lost them. Michael's not telling them anything. He's saying things without telling them anything. Now he's lost them. So now they're just ready. God, this is how the voters are, I feel like. Now they're just wandering around waiting for somebody to grab their attention, and just, it won't take much to convince them to come on over to this side, and that's what happens. And then, what does Dwight do? He takes it too far.
Yeah. So we can go to episode 11.
Let's go to episode 10. We got to go to
10.
First.
I'm sorry, episode 10. Yeah.
10 and 11. So I just want to say off the top, because I don't know how much we'll get into it, let's talk about the board of directors. Because episode 10 starts off with these rumors of bankruptcy, and then we subsequently find out that there's really no plan in place, and it sounds like the company has been mismanaged. And so, like, okay, they have failed, right? They have failed as leaders because, and I don't want to get too far ahead, but, when we see the board of directors in action, they are not...
Or in action.
Exactly. I mean, I don't know, maybe we just cover it now. It spans into episode 11, but I mean, they just, you find out the company's in trouble, and then you really find out why in episode 11, because they've mismanaged, and then it turns out they have no plan. And what are they trying to do at the board meeting? They're trying to make everybody happy. They're trying to say things that are going to calm people down, but they don't actually say anything with teeth. And then Michael comes in, and I don't want to get too far ahead, but it's all performative, I guess, is what it comes down to. The board of directors is performative, and then Michael plays into that, and it's like, well, no wonder the company is going downhill.
Yeah, they continue to live like fat cats. They don't. It doesn't.
They sent a
It's not
limousine for
portrayed.
Michael.
Yeah, they sent a limousine for Michael. They're in this like penthouse, and it's like a full bar and food and a wait staff. It's like they're not behaving as if there's any budget in mind, and yet they're having to face a crowd of ordinary people who have invested, in this
So,
company.
fun fact too, just to kind of put this in the context of current events. These episodes, this season aired in 2008 and 2009. So this is right in the midst of the housing crisis, and all these companies that were experiencing this was art imitating life, because they're making fun of Wall Street because all the Wall Street companies are doing the same stuff. Okay. Episode 10.
Tube City.
Well, I mean, it starts off with it's just a throwaway kind of comedic moment, but they get an email from David Wallace to the entire company saying, "Hey, we know there's rumors in the journal, and we just want you to know that they're not true." Of course, find out. Yeah, no, they are true. So he's just trying to do damage control. And Michael, he tells Erin, "Can you get the journal?" And she goes, "You mean your diary?" He's like, she goes, "Oh, you told me to put that in the time capsule. Did you?"
Yeah.
"I did." And then it's like, okay. And then, somebody else is like, "No, I think it's the Wall Street Journal." So they pull it up, and in this room full of accountants and salespeople, all these business people, they start reading, and it says, "Yeah, and it's unclear what's going to happen, but it looks like that's as far as it goes."
Paywall.
Now we got the paywall, and nobody's got a login.
No one knows. No one even knows what to do.
Nobody knows what to do. They're just, I guess that's it. We don't know. And Jim
I guess
comes
we
in,
just
he's
won't
like,
know.
"Let me log in."
And then Mike goes, "Oh, I was just about to do that." Or no, Andy. "Oh, I was just about to do that."
"Oh, you got it before I did."
Yeah, so they log in, they read that it might result in bankruptcy or something. So they basically find out, oh God, okay, this is bad. And they're all trying to get in touch with Michael Wallace, but David Wallace, but he's not responding. So they have all they have to go off of is this Wall Street Journal article that says the business is going under.
So the whole rest of the episode now revolves around, they get in the conference room, and Michael pretends to take a call, and he's going, "Oh my God, oh no!" And everybody's going, "Oh my God, what happened? There's been a murder in Savannah." And he starts going, and he begins this role-playing murder mystery game. He goes into his closet in his office, and he's got all these games, and he's talking about how important it is, how these games have gotten him through the hard points in life. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of portrayed in a way that they're making fun of Michael, right? He's talking about these very serious things. And the game operation got me through my vasectomy because it was my operation. All right, so they're being silly with it. But
Right.
There's an underlying truth here that sort of emerges as the episode progresses where, there's something to be said about A, the distraction of it, and B, the ability of the team to kind of do something it's team building is what he's doing. And so now he's getting them distracted and getting them into this murder mystery game. And there's a talking head of Jim where he says, "Look, part of being a good manager is you have to pick your battles."
Yes, I wrote that down. Co-managing is the give and take. You have to pick your battles.
That's right.
Yeah.
He says co-managing, you have to pick your battles, which I think that's good advice just in general, certainly for a leader. You can't be yelling all the time. Everything cannot be a battle, or else nothing's a battle. So it's good advice. And then he explains why, and it's because you just mentioned it. Tube City, Michael was going to set up this hamster course throughout the office, and Jim said, "No, you can't do that." So he's like, "Well, now I owe Michael one, so I'm going to have to let him do the murder mystery."
Yeah.
So the whole rest of this episode now is this tension between Michael, who's trying to keep them immersed in the game, and portions of the office, like Oscar and Jim, that are checking their phones, looking for updates. Jim wants to get back to work. At one point, Oscar comes in and says, we've been asked to hold all payments to our vendors. And he's like, this is not good. Jim's going, let's go back to work. Everybody's worried about, he's worried about losing his job. He's letting that fear drive and motivate him. And then we see, so he and Michael end up in the office, and we see what I believe is one of the strongest leadership moments from Michael, perhaps in the whole series, definitely in this episode. You know what I'm talking about. You're nodding your head. Let's see if you're thinking what I'm thinking.
Is that when they're hashing it out and Michael says they need this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
and he shouts
Jim,
it.
Yeah, so Jim basically takes Michael into Michael's office. He kind of snaps, honestly. And they go into Michael's office and they are literally yelling at each other. And Jim is like, today of all days. And Michael says, no, you listen. And he says, these people, they need this. And like, he really captivates Jim's attention in that moment. You know, all of a sudden, like, we're all listening to Michael like, oh, wait. Is there a method to this madness? Is there a reason beyond immaturity for why Michael has continued this game?
It's the tone, though. It's the way that Steve Carell delivers the line. You can see this is different. This is not Michael being Michael, the normal Michael, right?
Right.
This is, all of a sudden, he snaps into a different mode, and he's like very, very dead serious. They need this, Jim. Almost like he's going to cry.
Yes.
It's so well delivered and so well written. And then Jim's like, oh.
Okay. Yeah, and he literally says, okay.
He sees it in his eyes and hears it in his voice.
And he lets it go.
And later on, they do another talking head where, like, this is how my house is. It's like, look, we got to have two parents. It's like a household with two parents.
This is my favorite. This is one of my favorite lines. Yeah, in this
one to freak out and one to stay calm. And I'll let you. They give a better metaphor than that.
No, I think that this is really interesting. The family analogy. It's probably one of very, very few examples where there are co-managers. They're actually, when you look at a family and there are two parents, that's like very rarely in life do you have two leaders with like equal, and in some families this isn't true. Maybe there is one that has a little bit more authority than the other. I don't know, but in the newer generations, I feel that it's becoming a little bit more and more equal, where you do have to co-manage with someone. There are two leaders for that organization. So I thought that was like the perfect analogy, and it didn't even occur to me until he said that. So I like that. I liked that quote.
So I think I would characterize it differently. I think if we started digging into it, I don't think it's the same co-manager relationship. Yeah, all right, fine. You got two parents. That's probably the closest thing that you can come to where you're going to say you've got two managers. But I think what makes parenting work when it does, it's not what they've got here. One parent is typically better at certain things, and the other one recognizes that. And so, okay, in my house we joke, all right, I'm the primary. used to be my wife, right? She handled doctor's appointments. She handled school responses, teacher interactions, okay? And then our roles kind of changed in terms of who was at work and who was able to be at home, and right. And so, all right, well, I'm primary, and then these other things kind of get shifted. Same thing with, like, in a moment of crisis. There's always one of us is going to freak out, and one of us is going to be the calm one. And sometimes one leads to the other. You go, oh shit, okay, she's freaking out right now. All right, I got to step up, and vice versa. I hear this when just a silly anecdotal example, I'll give a driving lesson to a driving student, and I'll say, oh, hey, so who do you drive more with, mom or dad? There's always an answer. and it's usually 50-50, right? It's not like, oh, the men are better at driving with their kids or the women. It depends. It depends on the dynamics of the family household. But I think that's kind of a similar thing here, right? There's always an answer. There's always one or the other. Oh, no, I drive more with mom, or I drive more with dad. Oh, how come? And there's a couple of different variations on why that occurs. But I just think that's it's interesting to me. There's always an answer, but it's different in terms of the breakdown. My favorite portion of this, we can wrap up episode 10 here, I think, is, Michael says at the end, today, I was actually thinking this before he said it. He said, today is the hardest I've worked in a long time.
Yes.
And this is Michael's strength. I mean, this is the hardest he worked in a long time. I think that's true because he had to play to his strength today. And that actually, he probably got more done. It was more productive than when he's off with these crazy ideas, hey, we want to start a toilet paper line, or, he'll bring everybody in to brainstorm, or the episode where they're in the conference room and they're waiting for the little logo on the DVD logo to hit the corner, It's like, yeah, no, he actually had to be that parent that didn't freak out.
Yeah.
And Jim was the person who's like, oh my God, what are we going to do? And Michael had to step up and keep everybody from spiraling.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then we get to episode 11.
Really good episode.
So Michael's invited now. So this follows, right? The storyline continues. Okay, we're hearing rumors of bankruptcy. Now it's time for the board meeting. Michael gets invited, and he gets invited to, because he has the best performing branch. Let's do it chronologically, because before we really, there's some stuff that happens to get them, so they got to get to New York. But in the meantime, there's now this storyline, which is really great for leadership, from a leadership perspective. Jim is in the office. He asks Ryan to go do a task. He gives him a task. Hey, we need to consolidate our contacts into Outlook, take the Rolodex, whatever. And Ryan just has one excuse after another as to why he can't, he won't, it doesn't, right? Well, why do we need to do that if the company's going out of business? Well, we're not out of business yet, right? Let's go. Well, I just don't know. I just don't know if I can really wrap my head around this. And it persists through the rest of the episode. Like later on, Michael or Jim comes in and he goes, hey, so how we doing on the task? I'm just such a perfectionist that I don't want to do a substandard job. And Jim's going, what are you talking about? It's pretty straightforward. And then Ryan uses that opportunity. Well, it sounds like you have a pretty strong idea of what this should be. Maybe you should take a whack at it. So this now goes back to what we talked about a little bit ago. Nobody respects Jim as a manager.
Yeah. He has formal authority, but no respect, including his own wife, because he ends up doing a poll. Jim does a poll in the bullpen of his coworkers and says, who here believes I have the authority to, or believes that I can fire people? And
nobody
raised their hand. And then his wife, Pam, she goes, oh, she raised her hand and she goes, in her talking head, she said, I forgot I have to support him no matter what. And I wrote this in the extended cut. Her talking head goes a little bit further. And she says, here's the thing. What is co-manager? And I thought that was really interesting, right? Again, there's no clarity on this organizational structure. People are like, okay, we've always had a boss. So what is this co-manager? What does it really mean? What authority does he have? They're still viewing him as just Jim with a new title, but they're not viewing him as an actual partner manager, a partner to Michael. So that level of authority did not transfer over to Jim just because he got the title.
This is a great storyline, because this is something that is very real and very difficult to overcome. If you do not command respect from people, let alone direct reports, it's really hard to get things done. And certainly there are instances where you can compel somebody to do something or else, right? Let's say it's Michael. First of all, who knows if Jim actually has the authority to hire or fire?
He doesn't even know. He doesn't know.
Yeah, he doesn't even know. At one point, Pam's like, so can you really fire people? He's like, I have no idea. I'm not even sure how to do that. But, I've got to keep up appearances. He's not wrong, right? But he's wrong in the approach. He hasn't done anything to earn the respect of the people that he is supposed to be leading. So now all he's left with is whatever command and control authority he has been granted by his superior. And really, he doesn't even know how to wield that effectively. Right? I mean, he gives Ryan a task. Ryan's basically telling him to go F himself. Right. And Jim doesn't know how to handle that. Even the way it's interesting the way that they portray him handling it. So, like, as the episode proceeds, he goes, okay, hey, you know what, Ryan? I've been thinking about this. Yeah, you're distracted. I've got just the thing for you. I think you're going to love it. And he takes him over, and he has created a little mini office inside of the janitorial closet.
Yeah.
He put a computer in there with a desk, and it's this little teeny tiny closet. And he's like, hey, I got you your own office. He brings him over, and he opens the door. And now, I don't know how realistic this is, but we're led to believe, because Ryan, starts freaking out, that this was effective. Ryan's going, hey, you know what? I'll get that done right now. In fact, I apologize for the way I was behaving earlier. So apparently this is quite the punishment that is effective, which, okay, good for you, Jim, for figuring out what pressure point to push on. I'm like, big deal. Now he gets to go into the closet and be by himself. But I mean, I guess it's so small that they're trying to say that, no, this is going to be miserable.
Well, and Ryan thrives. We have to also understand Ryan, right? So Ryan thrives on attention, and to be so isolated from people and in such a demeaning way too, because Ryan went to business school and he thinks he's some hotshot and smarter than everybody, and which is part of why he's so defiant when anybody asks him to do anything. But so this was a huge attack on his ego.
Yes.
Right. And so Ryan's like, oh man, okay, fine. So now, and then Jim makes a big show of it so that the rest of the office sees him doing this to Ryan. So he demonstrates his authority, and now they've bought in. And I'll tell you why I know they bought in, because in the super fan episode, the extended cut, there's a scene at the very, very end, at the end of the day. And Phyllis comes to Jim's office and she says, she's like, I'm so sorry. I'm gonna have to be late tomorrow because I have a dentist appointment, but it was scheduled a long time ago. And I was like, okay, yeah, no problem. Yeah, thanks for telling me. She goes, oh, well, but because I have a cavity. And he's like, yeah, it's fine. And she goes, I'll just cancel it. She's so afraid of Jim now. Effective. Yes, it was effective. So it actually, Phyllis is like, I have a cavity. You know what? Forget it. I'm not going to cut, even though he's saying it's okay.
So that's why I say good on Jim, because you're right. He knew Ryan well enough to know where to hit him, and it would hurt. He knew how to now get that, even if it's not respect. I guess now it's fear, which is not a great way to lead. But I feel like that was a mistake on the part of the director. They should have included that talking head. That would have been better than maybe some of the other ones, because that really seals and solidifies that. Because I'm left watching it going, I guess that was effective. Apparently it worked. It seemed a little unfinished. But if I had seen the talking head with Phyllis, or the interaction where, okay, fine, she's fearful now. Oh, okay. I guess Jim's power play worked.
Right. Yeah, I thought so too. I actually thought, wow, I can't believe that scene got cut, because I also thought it was so effective. I was like, wow, that was a really good way to end this storyline. But you know how it is. The network's like, we don't have time. Cut it.
So, all right, simultaneous now to that, Michael takes
a limousine.
he takes Dwight and Oscar and we had somebody else with him. Was
Andy.
it Andy? Yeah. So he takes some people with him. They get to the board meeting. Michael is ushered into the private suite where the board members are all sipping their coffee and having their danishes and getting ready. The rest of the crew goes out, and they're going to ask Dwight's going to try to get in line to ask Michael a softball question to make him look good.
Right.
But basically what happens now is the board members come out, and Michael's pumped. He thinks this is going to be a great thing. And they come out, and everybody's booing. Because, of course, the company's in the toilet. The stock symbol is DMI. And there's a talking head of Oscar saying, yeah, our stock symbol is DMI. It stands for dummies, morons, and idiots. Because that's who would hold on to this right now.
And he's one of them. And Oscar is one of them.
Yeah. So,
Oscar's an accountant. Sorry, we should have prefaced. So Oscar's an accountant
at some point.
Okay, yeah, and he's like really competent. So anyway, yeah.
So yeah, the board is just getting hammered, and Michael, he tries to stick up for them. And I wrote down, this is a low EQ moment for Michael. Okay, so we see Michael kind of come back because he starts talking. Everybody's going, "You guys are crooks. You're bad people. You should be in jail." And he's going, "No. These guys they're such good people. They're so nice. They sent a limo for me. They brought me into the executive suite beforehand. They gave me coffee." And of course, that is the wrong thing to say. Like, know your audience. Right. That's not. Here's Michael trying to do the right thing, but it is not. And the board's all looking at him like grimacing, going, "Okay, stop talking."
Right. Like, just, you're supposed to be the pretty face here. You're not supposed to be making commentary.
So here's where, all right, the board, I said this before, they are performative, okay? They don't have a plan. What's his name? The boss, he sends the email out, "Hey, there's nothing to worry about," performative. They get out here, they're saying, "Hey, look, we are going to bring the company back. We're going to be stronger than ever," performative. And then Michael plays right into it. Because he goes, "Look, you guys are upset. Yeah, we're going to go take a break. We're going to come up with a 45-day plan." Mm-hmm. And he just keeps talking and saying words. And now he's like, everybody's cheering, and it's feeding him on. Yeah. And he's like doing twirls and on all this stuff.
Not going to do the twirl. It's more of a spin.
But he does.
Yeah.
It's all performative, but Michael doesn't know that. Because now they get back into their little lounge, and he goes, "Okay, guys, so what's the plan?" And they're like, "There's no plan." "Okay, well then we'll go with what I came up with, the 45 days.
Yeah.
And here's
day 44.
So here's this little glimmer, okay? Michael was being performative. He was just saying things. But then he's like, "Oh, okay, great. So day 45, company saved. Day 44, what do you got?" This is the start of a good, productive session. But of course, nobody's on board. Like, what are you talking about? We have no idea.
Who brought this clown? Why is he here? I did write down, this just ties to kind of who Michael is. And there are people who rise the ranks and become leaders because they're yes men. And I put that Michael is a yes man, not because he wants to further his career. So he's not performative for advance, to advance in his career. He's doing it because he has a deep fear of disappointing others and looking like the bad guy. And that's one of his biggest flaws. I think that holds him back. He is so afraid to be disliked that he will say yes or do anything to make other people happy. And that's why he was so, he was performative. Not the CEOs were doing it because they don't want shareholders to pull out and they would lose money, right? To them, it's very self-serving and like financial. For Michael, it comes from a place of like, I don't want people to be unhappy with me, so I'm going to promise them the world. And then he genuinely wants them to be happy. So he goes back and says, okay, day 44, let's come up with a plan. It's, again, no EQ, but it's just his motivations are just so different from everyone else's in that penthouse.
This might be the biggest leadership lesson and the most important leadership lesson that we've ever discussed on the podcast. Because this happens with new leaders all the time. They get promoted into that management or leadership role, and they want to make everybody happy. They want to be liked. And that is a losing proposition, because now if their goal is to be liked, there's no principle. What are we operating to? So they will, just as you described, just like Michael, they will say yes to anything to get the likes, which means now it doesn't matter what our goal is or if we're aligned to it. We're not operating to any principles other than to be liked, which means we will sway wherever the wind goes. That is so frustrating as a follower to try to follow somebody like that, because you never know what direction you're going to be headed each day. And so if you are a newly promoted manager, don't fall into that trap. In fact, you probably should also take one of my leadership development workshops. Did I mention this podcast is sponsored by Headroom Advisors? You can go to headroomadvisors.com to learn more. All right, that's the end of the shameless plug, but the leadership lesson is still very valuable.
I think that is it.
That's it, and that's all. No, there's a couple other things that happen here. So, a broken clock is right twice a day. Michael Scott occasionally stumbles into the right thing, either accidentally or for the wrong reason. So, okay, he tries to get them to come up with a plan, 45-day plan. Okay, day 44, what do you got? They're just like, nope, they're not having it. He goes, okay, you know what? No problem. I'm going to call a guy. Actually, I'm going to text him. The whole way up, Oscar is talking in very, actually, it's before they leave. Oscar's trying to explain to Michael, hey, here's some smart things that you can say, right? Here's the problem with the company. Here's how they need to fix it. Michael doesn't understand it, but he does understand that he's got a guy that seems to have a plan, and now he's in a room with all these executives that clearly don't. He's like, okay, cool. Let me bring the guy in that I know that has a plan. But it turns out to be more performative than anything else, because he calls Oscar in. Oscar comes in. He goes, tell them what you told me. And Oscar's just like, he doesn't want to lose his job. He goes, you guys are doing a great job. Keep up the good work. Michael did not do a good job of leading Oscar, right? He doesn't give him a heads up. He doesn't set him up with like, here's what I want you to do. Here's what we're trying to accomplish. They need some direction. You can provide it. He doesn't do any of those things. He parades him in as somebody that he thinks is going to make him look good.
Right. And has all the answers.
And then it falls flat.
And in contrast to that, David Wallace is very good at managing Michael. So Michael, with all his flaws, he's still able to deliver the most successful results out of any other branch. And David Wallace knows that and basically gives him enough what is it called? Leash? What, I don't know what you want to call it. But like, he allows basically Michael to be a certain level of Michael because he knows it's working for the Scranton branch. And even when things fall apart, David Wallace takes Michael to the side and says, I think, we're going out there. You're not. I think you should leave now. He does that in a good, he doesn't embarrass him. He doesn't yell at him for, because I'm sure David Wallace himself is like embarrassed by
He does at
Michael.
one point, though. He does kind of raise his voice and he says, you were just supposed to wave.
Oh, right. Well, because he's frustrated with the way that all played out and all the false promises.
He promised everybody a plan.
Yeah.
It's like, what have you done? You were just supposed to wave.
But even after bringing up the Oscar, after all that, and the the board of directors goes back out, David Wallace takes Michael aside and basically is just like, you just leave because you're done here. But I don't think he does it in an embarrassing way. And I think David Walls is a strong leader. I think there's a reason why he is in the position he's in.
And then, again, Michael has this moment. They tell him that he's going to have to take a bus home, right? The board is
no limousine for you.
Like, you've already had your limo ride. Send him home on the bus. So, of course, what does Michael do? He goes running out, grabs everybody. Let's go, guys. We got to go. Goes and gets in the limo before they have a chance to cancel it. And he's talking as they're leaving New York. And basically, they start celebrating.
Yeah.
And he says something to the effect of, hey, you know what? This was supposed to be a celebration for everybody. They are not celebrating because they have no plan, but we have something to be proud of. We are still a top-selling branch, and so we're going to celebrate that.
Yeah.
And it's very morale. That, again, we saw that in the previous episode, right? Michael's working hard. He's working hard to keep the morale up because he wants to be liked. Okay, so maybe his motivation is not the best.
But he's successful in keeping morale up.
Yes.
So, like, regardless of his motivation, he actually is successful at keeping morale up, and there's something to be said for that.
So I'm going to bring this up briefly because we teased it earlier. During the board meeting, Dwight finally does get to the front of the line, and now it's his turn at the microphone. Uh-huh. And so he starts off with this great metaphor. You know, I've been waiting in this line all day just to offer or ask my question. And if this company is operated and managed the way this line has been managed today, then we're in real trouble.
Right.
And everybody erupts in applause. And it's a great metaphor. I wrote down, great metaphor. But Dwight lacks the emotional intelligence and self-awareness to then just realize when it's time to let it go. Just like with his battles with Jim that we see throughout the whole show, right? Dwight never knows when to turn it off. He doesn't know when to stop. So he continues the metaphor and loses everybody because now he's just saying things. And
because we have options, you know. And then everyone's like, yeah, we do have options. We can withdraw our money from, Dunder Mifflin, invest somewhere else. And they're like, yeah. And he's like, okay. And then he starts saying, take a number or other options for line formation, basically. And he just totally loses the crowd.
He doesn't even realize why they were excited about what he said. So he takes it down in a direction that he thought they were applauding for, but no, that's... and so that's Dwight. Okay, let's wrap this up with, is there any advice you would give to anybody that we've talked about anything?
I don't know. There's just so much. I just think Jim, to me, like, I really just did not care for how Jim was behaving. He throughout this little arc. He's a very strong salesman. He's a strong individual contributor, and he thinks he has all the right answers when it comes to being a manager, but then he doesn't have enough respect for the position to understand how nuanced it is and like what it's going to take to be a good manager, because he continues to just act like the popular kid in the class and then gets upset when people when people get upset with him for having to actually do his job. He gets upset about that. It's like, Jim, grow up a little bit. You wanted this position. Now it's time to step up and actually do it.
So something you just said resonated with me, and I want to double click on it a little bit. He doesn't have respect for the position. I agree. And can you blame him? What has his role model been? What has he been looking at as the manager for the last 6 years? It's Michael trying to be liked. And that's why I actively avoided going into management for most of my career in large Fortune 50 organizations, because I looked at what those managers were. I looked at how they behaved. I looked at what the challenges were that they had. And I said, I don't want to be a babysitter. Or I don't want to be, I think the kids would call it a pick-me. I don't want to be that pick-me personality that's just trying to make everybody happy and liked. And so, yeah, Jim, I would talk to Jim as well, because I think that's where I see the most potential. And I'd say, look, Jim, your power, your core competency is in being the level-headed leader in the room. Usually he's fact-based. I had a little bit of problem with some of these episodes, the way they wrote Jim, because I'm like, some of this feels a little out of character for him. Like they've done it just to advance the plot. I don't think that's how Jim would be, but whatever, that's how they wrote it. And I would say, look, you're not Michael Scott. If you guys are going to be co-managers, figure out a way to keep that tension so that you balance him out and he balances you out. I'd probably do this at the end of episode 10. Hey, look how you guys were able to balance each other out in this time of crisis. Focus on that, dive into that, grab onto that, and let that be, you guys will be so much better together if you can figure out how to make that work. Parting thoughts?
This was fun. I have so many more Office episodes we could do.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see. I kind of liked doing a collection that had that arc. I think I told you I've got some more Modern Family ones that I've jotted down. We could probably look at some other shows. Maybe we need to look at some other shows before we come back and revisit. So we'll see. We'll see where we go next. But until then, Mariam, thanks once again for being here. Mariam, I have no nickname, Laes.
Pleasure to be here.
I am Professor G. This is the Lead Out Loud podcast, Real Leadership Edition. We will see everybody next time. Subscribe. Tell a friend.